to Sydney. I hope you're doing well. I am back in mainland Australia, and now begins the real going up the East Coast adventure. So my stop, this is the third stop of the trip, kind of. But anyway, I'm in Sydney, and there's the Harbour Bridge. But I am here right now at the Walsh Bay Wharf. Anyway, if you're a fan of the TV show Dance Academy, this is actually where they filmed some of the exterior scenes when they were at the school. So I am not sure I'm on the right one, but I just passed the Sydney Dance Company and I'm gonna take it in, pretend I'm a dancer. But yeah, I love the show Dance Academy. I've watched it like 3 times. Probably not in the target demographic, but anyway, so this is very exciting. And you can probably tell it just rained. It's kind of gonna be like that off and on. But anyway, I will show you around Sydney, and welcome. I spent some time exploring the area, taking in the scenery, especially since the weather finally started to kind of clear up. But then I wandered over to the Rocks Markets. This is something I was not expecting, but it was really cool. I didn't take great videos of it, but there's a bunch of various art and food and other local wares there, so definitely check it out. I think I actually went back when I was back in Sydney at the end of my trip. And then I went over to the Sydney Harbour Bridge. I honestly was originally going to go up the Pylon Lookout, but it was so expensive. But there's a little observation area right where the sign is for the Pylon Lookout, and it offered very great views, so highly recommend doing that, and it's free. Then I went over to the Royal Botanic Garden, and this is probably one of my favorite places that I visited in Sydney. I actually came back here again at the end of my trip, and it's just gorgeous. And everything was still in bloom, even though it was fall, definitely middle of fall. There was definitely so much in bloom. I can't imagine what it's like in the spring. It's probably gorgeous. But I spent some time walking around, and within the Botanic Gardens is the Sydney Fernery, and I definitely recommend checking this out. It is so peaceful. I think I was the only person, or maybe there's one other person there when I was visiting, and it was just absolutely just one of those hidden gems I find in the city. I don't know how hidden it is, but to me it felt like a hidden gem. And then I continued walking along the water until I made it to the Sydney Opera House. And it's one of those iconic sites you have to see in Sydney. It's really impressive. Also, I didn't know that the roof was like a tile sort of look. I don't know what I thought it was, but I didn't think it was like a tile. But anyway, I go back to the Opera House many times, so don't worry. I will be back very shortly to talk about it further. But the next day, I went over to the Powerhouse Museum. And this is a museum I haven't heard many people talk about, but it's actually really cool because it has a lot of interactive experiences, and it goes through various technologies like steam technology, computers, space, aviation, etc. And it's actually a really cool museum, and it's free, so definitely on my list of must-dos. But it's just a nice kind of rainy day activity. They also have some rotating exhibits in there as well, and I really enjoyed going there for a few hours, and I definitely recommend it. Like I said, I don't hear a whole lot of people talking about it, but I do recommend it. Then I walked over to Darling Harbour. The weather started to kind of be a little off and on rain, but honestly, I just walked around the harbor. I feel like this is a place I've heard about a lot, but I didn't do too much here, if I'm being completely honest. But it was still very pretty, and I did enjoy my time at Darling Harbour as well. And then I walked over, or I guess I took the bus over there, to the Anzac Memorial. This is another memorial dedicated to those who've served in the military in Australia. This one I felt like was a little bit bigger than the one in Melbourne, but now that I'm kind of saying that, maybe it's not. It's definitely just a very beautiful and solemn place. There's also some exhibits you can take a look at and learn more about the history of the military presence in Australia. Then I walked over to St. Mary's Cathedral, which is super close by, and this cathedral is a cathedral. Honestly, you step in here and you feel like you're in some church, Catholic cathedral in like Portugal or somewhere in Europe, but definitely if you have time, you can go check it out. I don't think it's a must do, but if you have a couple minutes, pop in. Then in the evening, I went over to Spice Alley, which was just down the street from my hostel. Spice Alley is a place where there's multiple Pan-Asian restaurants or a little kiosk, and you can grab some food for relatively cheap or a good price. So if you have an evening to go check it out, I definitely recommend it. Then the next day, this was my last full day in Sydney on this part of the trip, I went to Wendy Whiteley's Secret Garden, which you do have to, it's on the other side of the harbor, so you can take a bus like I did, or you could take the ferry. But it's definitely a very peaceful place. It gives you a different vantage point of the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House and just the downtown CBD area. Hello, welcome to my last final day in Sydney for now. Today I'm just taking an easy day. I haven't really been vlogging because the hostel I'm in is very loud, very overwhelming, and honestly I cannot wait to leave tomorrow. So yeah, I am just out here in a little bit of solitude. I'm at the Wendy Whiteley Secret Garden overlook or whatever, and it's just really peaceful here. I know there's graffiti there, but it's actually really peaceful, and I'm just here for a little bit longer, and then I'm just gonna walk around a little, and then I'm going to head back to the Opera House to do a tour there. Oh my god, I look so tired. But yeah, I'm doing a tour at the Opera House at 3:30, and then I have another tour tonight, so I will take you along. But for now, I'm gonna enjoy my last few minutes of solitude and then head out. Now I'm just chilling here at the Harbour Bridge, and the Opera House is in the background. I honestly think this vantage point is probably the best vantage point of both. That's just my opinion, at least of what I've seen so far. So if you want a really good vantage point of the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Sydney Opera House, come over here to Luna Park area, over across the river. I think it's the best view. But I've spent my kind of early afternoon there, and then I actually booked myself a tour to go to the Opera House. I was kind of debating whether I wanted to do it, but because it is a little pricey, but I decided to do it because it's iconic, and I'm a former musical theater major, theater kid, so I kind of want to see it. So that's at 3:30, and then I booked myself one of those free tours at 6 in the Rocks area, which is pretty close to the harbor. But yeah, I booked a free tour, so that's a 6. I think it's like an hour and a half, and it's kind of one of those pay as you see fit. So I'm excited for that, and that's kind of it. And then I leave tomorrow. I'll be back in Sydney though, spoiler alert, but I'm leaving, thank God, because I'm honestly ready to get out of the hostel, but I'm leaving to go to the Blue Mountains, and then I'm coming back, but I'm staying in Bondi Beach. So anyway, that's what I'm up to. There's a lot of construction. I'm gonna go, but I hope you've enjoyed the Sydney vlog. I feel like it's been a bit of a downer, but we're gonna turn it around. So I then took the ferry from Milson's Point back over to Circular Quay. It was only a couple minutes, but it was fun to see the bridge and the Opera House from the water. So if you want to do that and don't want to spend a bunch of money on a formal boat tour, I definitely recommend just taking this short ferry. Then I went back to the Sydney Opera House and I took the standard Opera House tour. It was a little spendy at 43 Australian dollars, but if you're interested in the performing arts and you really want to go inside, I do recommend this tour. We actually got to see both concert halls, which was a treat. So we saw the Opera House, which is on the left, and then on the right side is the Symphony Concert Hall. So definitely recommend it. It is, like I said, a little bit expensive, but it was so much fun. And if you're interested in it, I do recommend taking a tour. Then my final activity of the evening was actually a free tour, although I did tip them at the end, don't worry. But it was the free tour of the rocks from I'm Free Tours. And this was such a great tour. I highly recommend doing this if you can. Our guide was amazing. He took us all through the rocks area. We got to see some of the oldest bars in the area, and we learned a lot about the history of the convicts in Sydney. So such a great tour. Definitely recommend. And that was it for my time in Sydney on this first part of my trip. I do go back to Sydney at the end, so you'll see some sights again and some new sights, so don't worry. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to give me a follow on all my social channels. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified when I post a new video. I'll catch you again in the next video, and remember to wander far and wander often. I'm here in the Blue Mountains.